The moment she handed me the cookies, something clicked inside me. A feeling I couldn't explain, not even to myself. It was as though the universe had thrown me into this strange dance of fate, and I was about to step onto a stage where the past and present collided in the most unexpected of ways. If you've ever felt like life has a strange way of testing your choices, like fate had some secret plan all along, then stick around. Like and subscribe for more stories that remind you how connected we all are, even when we don't know it yet. The early morning light sliced through the office building's glass windows, casting long shadows across the sleek floors, while the hum of low conversation echoed in the distant corridors. I'd made my way through it all, memos, meetings, and the endless stream of emails, until the clock hit precisely 11:47 a.m. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I still held the cup, staring out of the window. Horizon Tech had been my life, my pride, my success. The company I'd built from scratch was now the leader in tech development, and every inch of it felt like my personal responsibility. That's why when I noticed her, Rachel Taylor, the moment caught me completely off guard. A random mother trying to make ends meet, with her infant son cradled on her lap, sitting across from me on the train ride into Boston. She was at the end of her rope, just like I had been all those years ago, but somehow I hadn't recognized it. It took me until our paths crossed in a coffee shop for me to finally see the connection. No, feel the connection, and realize how intricately our lives were tied together. I hadn't meant to fire her. It wasn't supposed to end that way. Rachel had been an extraordinary analyst. I remembered seeing her work before. She had submitted one of the most innovative marketing proposals I'd ever reviewed. But her circumstances, her being a single mother, the absence of adequate childcare, had led me to the decision. The company was restructuring, and her position was eliminated. I knew it sounded callous. And I knew, sitting there on that train, the guilt started to gnaw at me, creeping up my spine with every passing minute. She hadn't said a word to me at first. She was just a woman trying to calm her fussy baby, Lucas, but I saw the way she looked out the window, her face a mask of exhaustion, of defeat. It made me feel like I'd made a horrible mistake, but it wasn't until the moment she asked, "Would you like to buy some cookies?" that the full impact of it all came rushing to the surface. My first instinct was to walk away, to dismiss it as another moment of random interaction, one of those fleeting encounters you forget as soon as they happen. But I didn't walk away. There was something about the way her eyes looked up at me, the determination that no one else could see but me. So I did what I usually did. I agreed, bought the cookies, and moved on, trying not to think about the ripple effect it would have on both of us. I thought that would be the end of it, another forgotten gesture. But as I walked out of the coffee shop, I caught a glimpse of the sign on her little cart again. "Please buy my cookies," it said. The simple words, scrawled hastily in black marker, stuck with me, turning over in my mind. I hadn't just bought a cookie from her. I had made a choice to step into a situation I wasn't ready for, one where the lines of business, life, and guilt had already blurred in ways I couldn't possibly imagine. That was the moment it all started to unravel. When I reached into my bag to pay for my coffee later that afternoon, I found it, a small note folded within the cookie box. "Thank you for buying my cookies. I know you didn't have to." And beneath her name, Rachel Taylor, the words that stopped me cold. I used to work for Horizon Tech. They fired me last week. I dropped the coffee cup. It was as if the room spun around me, the world pressing in on all sides. The woman I'd crossed paths with in the coffee shop wasn't just anyone. She wasn't just a mother trying to make ends meet, and Lucas wasn't just a baby in need of attention. This was the same woman I'd fired only days ago. This was the woman I'd pushed aside for reasons that seemed less and less justifiable by the second. And the worst part was, she had no idea who I was. She had no clue that the man who bought her cookies was the one responsible for her life being turned upside down. I stood frozen, the words sinking in as I stared at the tiny note in my trembling hands. A dozen emotions stormed within me: guilt, anger, regret. This wasn't how I envisioned it would go. She didn't know who I was. She didn't even know why I'd made the decision to let her go in the first place. But now I knew something had to change. Maybe not for her, but for me. Maybe this was life's way of showing me that no matter how high you climb, no matter how much you achieve, there's always a way for the universe to pull you back down to earth, to remind you of the humanity that ties us all together. I had a choice now: make things right, or let this moment slip away. The next morning, I sat at my desk in Horizon Tech's glass-walled boardroom, the soft hum of the office barely registering in the background. I had barely slept, tossing and turning in bed, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. Rachel Taylor. Why hadn't I connected the dots sooner? Why hadn't I realized that the woman I had fired, whose life I had disrupted, was sitting right in front of me, asking me to make a choice, as if we were strangers in a cafe, instead of two people whose lives had intertwined in ways I couldn't ignore? I should have reached out to her immediately. I should have apologized. I could have offered her a better position, a chance to come back into the fold. But instead, I had hidden behind the company policies, behind the cold practicality of business decisions. And now, just like that, the universe had placed her right in front of me once again, this time with a child on her lap and the ghosts of my decisions trailing in her wake. I couldn't stop thinking about Ellie, her little girl, standing outside that coffee shop with her sign, "Please buy my cookies." The thought of Rachel's child, innocent in her plea, made the guilt eat at me even more. I had given her a job, a life, at least. I had given her the chance at one, and I had taken it away with a single decision. No matter how justified the restructuring seemed at the time, no matter how much I tried to tell myself it was all just business, it never felt like it was supposed to end that way. And now, staring at the email in front of me, another meeting request, another board decision, it all seemed so trivial. The door to my office opened, and I glanced up to see Mark, my COO, standing in the doorway. "Got a minute, Daniel?" "Yeah, come in." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, trying to push aside the thoughts swirling in my mind. Mark sat down, placing a thick folder in front of me. "This is the latest data on the Horizon merger. It's almost ready for final review. We'll need your sign-off before the end of the week." I nodded, trying to refocus on the business at hand. But my thoughts kept drifting back to Rachel and Ellie. I had to do something. I had to make it right, whatever that meant. I wasn't even sure what that looked like yet, but I knew the first step was finding Rachel. Mark cleared his throat. "You okay, man? You've been off all morning. Your head's clearly not here." I forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. "I'm fine. Just thinking about some things." Mark raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. "Well, when you're ready, we need to get the final merger numbers together. A lot's riding on this." "I know," I said absently, my mind now elsewhere. As Mark left, I reached for my phone, dialing the number of Horizon's HR director, Sarah. She picked up after a few rings. "Hi, Daniel. How's it going?" "I need Rachel Taylor's contact information," I said, cutting straight to the point. "I know she was let go, but I need to reach her." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Okay, I can get that for you." "Are you sure that's—" "I'm sure. Just get it for me, Sarah." "Got it. I'll email you her details in a minute." I hung up without another word, my stomach sinking as I realized what I was about to do. I hadn't spoken to her since the day I made the decision that had changed both of our lives. Was she even open to hearing me out, or had my actions irreparably destroyed any chance of redemption? Would she just see me as another corporate figure who had done her wrong and moved on? The email from Sarah arrived within minutes, and I stared at it for a long while. The email address, the phone number, there it all was, right in front of me, just a few clicks away. I could reach out. I could make the first step toward fixing the mess I'd made. But what if she didn't want to hear from me? What if she never wanted to set foot in Horizon Tech again, let alone come back to work? I spent the next few minutes second-guessing myself. I was stuck between wanting to do the right thing and fearing that the right thing had already passed me by. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, and I knew that time was running out. The truth was, Rachel's work had been invaluable, and her potential was something I hadn't even begun to understand when I made that decision to fire her. I had made that call with a briefcase full of justifications and charts, but what I hadn't accounted for were the real lives behind those spreadsheets. The people who work day in and day out, not for a paycheck, but for a sense of purpose. And now, as I stared at my phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had taken something from Rachel and her family that could never be replaced. I dialed the number. Her voice came through the line, tentative but steady. "Hello, Rachel," I said, my throat tightening. "It's Daniel Hudson." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you, Daniel." "I know, and I don't blame you for that," I said quickly, my words tumbling out before I could stop them. "Look, I know I made a mistake. I fired you, and I shouldn't have. I want to make things right, if you'll let me. She was quiet for a moment, and I could almost feel the weight of the silence between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice guarded. What does that mean exactly? I don't know yet, I admitted, leaning back in my chair. But I'm willing to figure it out, if you're willing to give me a chance. I could hear her breath catch slightly. I'm not sure what you think you can do, Daniel, but I appreciate the offer. The truth is, I'm not really sure I have a place at Horizon anymore. Things have changed for me. I understand, I said, my heart sinking. But if you'll let me, I'd like to find a way to change things back. Maybe not for you, but for the company. I owe you that much. Another pause. I'll think about it, Daniel. But don't expect me to just walk back in. I wouldn't ask you to. But if you're willing, I'll do whatever it takes to make up for what I did. The line went quiet for a long moment before she spoke again. I'll think about it. We'll talk soon. I stared at my phone after she hung up, a strange sense of relief washing over me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge had just begun. The next few days were a blur. My thoughts kept returning to Rachel's words, and the weight of what I'd done hung over me like a cloud. I couldn't stop replaying that brief phone conversation, wondering if she truly meant it when she said she'd think about it. The days bled into one another, the merger hanging over me like a shadow, but all I could think about was whether or not I could redeem myself, whether there was even a chance to make things right. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. Let's talk. My pulse quickened as I stared at the screen, the simplicity of those words carrying more weight than any boardroom deal. We arranged to meet the following day, and as the time approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about getting her back at Horizon Tech. This was about fixing a broken system, about creating a place where people like Rachel could thrive, not be discarded the moment life got complicated. The next day, I met her in a small cafe. Rachel walked in with a calm demeanor, her eyes slightly wary, but there was something else there, an unspoken acknowledgement that this conversation was long overdue. She sat across from me, and for the first time since I'd made that decision, I could see the person behind the resume, behind the fired employee. First things first, she said, meeting my gaze. I'm not here for a pity offer, Daniel. I've moved on. But I'll listen. I'm not offering you pity, I replied, my voice steady. I'm offering you respect. The respect I should have given you when I first let you go. She nodded, but there was no judgment in her eyes, just the quiet strength that had gotten her through everything. I want to fix it. The way Horizon handles situations like yours. I want to create something that's more than just a paycheck. A place where people don't feel disposable. Rachel leaned back, considering my words. And how do you plan to do that? I don't know yet. But I'm starting by asking you if you'll help me figure it out. There was a long pause before she responded. I'll think about it. But I'll be honest, this is more than a job to me now. It's about making sure other people don't fall through the cracks like I did. I nodded, understanding. Then let's start there. Together. Rachel smiled faintly. Well, see, it wasn't a promise, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long while, it felt like I was finally heading in the right direction.